I'm going to show you a super easy way to take your shaky slow motion footage and create buttery smooth B-roll using Premiere Pro. Hello and welcome everyone, this is Amrita Bhortake. I only recently learned this trick and I wanted to share it with you guys in case one of you was struggling to stabilize their slow motion footage just like I was. For all the people who already know it, kudos, what were you doing? Why didn't you tell me? No, seriously, this is awesome for all the people who already know this, but it saves you so much time and you don't have to worry about reshooting your footage, and it's such an easy trick. You're gonna love this. So to start with, I am going to import my media and I want to create a bin, say B-roll. So I am gonna find my file and then just drag and drop it in here. I want to change the label and change the color to mango because I knew I wanted to convert this into a slow motion footage. I shot this at 120 frames per second. You can shoot 30, you can shoot 60 and still be able to make a slow motion clip out of it. But if I am intentional when I shoot my slow-mo and not as an afterthought, I always shoot it in 120 frames per second. I have recently heard that if you're shooting people, it looks better in 60 frames per second, so I have to test that out. But all the other slow motion B-roll that I shoot, it is always done in 120 frames per second. So how do you convert this into your 24 frames per second timeline? And yes, that's the basic timeline that I use. Because all the footage that I shot was in 1080p. I actually like to create my own sequence because I always like to create my timeline in 4K because I export in 4K. And that's why I'm going to create my own sequence. So first thing I'm going to do is create a sequence. You go down to the new item on the bottom and then go to sequence. Click sequence. I have custom sequences created, so I'm going to say slow motion B-roll. And basically what it is a 4K sequence, which is 23.976 frames per second. The frame size is 3840 by 2160. Frame rate is 23.976 frames per second. Pixel aspect ratio is square pixel 1. And the rest of the settings I have not actually changed. So this is what I use. And I don't want to go and dig through all these different options that are there when I'm creating it. I want it easy. So I have created my own custom sequence preset, and I just go in there, pick my sequence that I want, and I use it. For example, another important one I have is for IG stories, which is in 30 frames per second, and I have an IG story in 24 frames per second. And I also have a different one for IGTV vertical. I feel like these are interchangeable, and the one that I end up using most is the IG story 24 frames per second. All right, let's go ahead, click OK. Our sequence is done. So the first thing I want to do with this clip is I want to convert it into a 24 frames per second clip. So I'm going to right click on it and say modify, go to interpret footage, click on it. This is the box that will show up. Go to click on assume this frame rate, and in here type in 23.976. Now keep in mind, I am doing this because I am using a 24 frames per second sequence. If you shoot and edit in 30 frames per second, absolutely go ahead and change it to 30 frames per second. But because this is the frame rate that I use, I am actually going to keep it as 23.976. Other settings are going to stay the same. I do not change anything out of it, and just hit OK. And now, if you can see the file, it says 23.976. It is converted. It's a pretty quick process. It is as easy as that to just change any of your footage that you have shot in 120 frames per second, 60 frames per second, or even 30 frames per second and change it into 24 frames per second. If you are creating videos in 30 frames per second, then you just change it to 30 frames per second. I usually shoot all my videos in 24 frames per second, and hence I changed it to 23.976 or 24. So the other day, when I was shooting some B-roll outside in my garden, I found this honeybee on my lavender flowers, and I absolutely had to capture it. I loved how the honeybee was moving from one flower to another, and I thought it would make a really good clip as part of the B-roll. Let me show you the clip. Let me just pull it in. If you go to source, where you see the actual clip, you see these two icons on the bottom. One says drag video only, one says drag audio only. If I just click the entire clip and drop it, it will drop the video and audio, which is what I do for my other sequences, especially for my main footage, my talking head sequences. But if I am doing B-roll, I really don't need the audio part of it. It's just a redundant step for me where I have to bring it in, then delete it. What I find easiest to do is just go to drag video only and just drag in the video that I need. And it will say that the clip does not match the sequence settings, change sequence to match the clip. It says this because my timeline is 4K, and it gives me this error because my sequence is a 4K sequence, whereas my camera only shoots 120 frames per second in 1080p. So I'm going to keep the existing settings. I do not want to change the sequence settings because the rest of my video is actually going to be 4K. And this is the clip. As we can see, it's a fairly long clip. It's almost 15-second long. And I don't want so much of the other movement in there. I want that to be faster, but just want to focus on the movement of the bee. So what I'm going to do is, let's make our clip a little bigger so we can see what we're changing. Right click on this. If you go to show clip keyframes, click on time remapping and then speed. What this will allow me to do is create speed ramps. And basically what speed ramps are if you've seen action videos, they allow you to be able to speed up the rest of the video and just focus on the main action itself. If you see skaters or cars moving on a racetrack or even motorcycles, there's a time when it makes a turn or somebody does a flip. That flip is just in slow motion and the rest of the video is faster. And this is how people do it. So here I want to actually just create keyframes for the time that the bee moves from one flower to another. I'm going to click P for pen on my keyboard, make a keyframe here, and scrub ahead a little bit. And as it reaches the other flower, make another keyframe. It has created two keyframes on the side. I am going to hit V as a shortcut, which will take me back to my selection tool, or you can just go to this sidebar and click selection tool here. I love shortcuts, so usually it just ends up speeding my workflow a lot, and I love using them. Here I am going to increase the speed on this for maybe 140%. I want to see how much it does, and maybe 140% on both sides. And let's see. It's still a little slower. So the other thing I can do, and I feel like it looks a little abrupt. If I move the scroll bar on the bottom, it allows me to zoom in and out of the video clip. You can see it better and you can make better adjustments rather than have it smaller where it's harder to make adjustments. So I usually like to have it a little bit larger where I can make more adjustments. I really think I need to go a little bit faster, maybe 180% faster, and maybe the same here. Or let's do 200 on both sides. Let's do 200 here too. And now what I'm going to do is click on this icon here, which was created when we created our keyframe. Click on that. It will highlight to this blue color, and I want to separate it out a little bit so that it creates a smoother transition going from one section to another. Do the same thing on the other side, but I can make it even more smoother. Let's see how this plays. And I want to bring it in a little bit. Yeah, I want to just make it a little smoother. Once I separate these out, I want to use these Bezier handles to make it even more of a smoother transition. So if you just separate them out like you see on the left hand side of the clip, this is known as the linear interpolation. If you make a more smoother curve, like I am making one here, this is called Bezier interpolation. There we go. And you will have to adjust it a little bit based on what movement you're trying to recreate. Yeah, I like it. I might actually move this out a little bit. Move this part in. And maybe but because this was handheld, I think I want to have a little bit more smoother movement. What I want to do, oh, I love that. That looks so beautiful. Okay, what I want to do is go to warp stabilizer. So in effects on the right upper hand corner, if you can see effects, if you cannot see this section, and if you're, for example, if you're in editing mode and this is what you see, go to effects, where you will be able to click on the warp stabilizer, which you can find under video effects and distort, and then warp stabilizer. Here, this is what I want to show you. If you just bring this warp stabilizer in and drop it on this, you are going to get an error that says warp stabilizer and time remapping cannot be used on the same clip. But what if you want to? There is a way to use them on the same clip, and here's how you do it. First thing I want to do is go to my effect controls and remove the warp stabilizer that we have already added on here. Here, I want to clear the error that they have given me. Now we're back to the clip that we had before. Now, right click on it and go to nest. You can say nested sequence 1, or you can call it anything you like. I'm just gonna leave it as it is. And here I'm going to now bring in the warp stabilizer and drop it on this clip. This will take some time because Premiere will need to work in the background to analyze the clips and apply the warp stabilizer effect on it. But this is how it'll work. I'm gonna show you, once it is applied, how it eventually looks like. When you play this footage now, see all this weird warping that's going on in the background. We definitely don't want that. So what I'm going to do is go to Effect Controls and go down to my warp stabilizer, and in my method, click on position. I feel like that might help it. Yeah. And that helps quite a bit. And here's the final video. This is the clip that I used in my final B-roll. I hope you found this video useful and you can use it to fix your shaky slow motion footage to create that beautiful, gorgeous B-roll. Comment below and let me know if you have utilized this tool and if you have any other tips that you can share with the community. Help out this community, because that's why all of us are here, to learn and get better at our craft. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see more behind the scenes footage and some beautiful still life images. Give the video a thumbs up if you learned something from it or found it inspirational. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell to be notified of all of my future videos. Thank you so much everyone for joining me today, and have an amazing, amazing day. Bye-bye. So I planned today because my husband was off today and he could take care of the kids, and I planned today's day for shoot. I had prepped everything. I even set up my own entire studio last night so I could have everything ready in the morning and ready to go. And the landscapers showed up and they're cutting the tile right in front of my window. Oh my gosh. I'm still gonna try to record it, but let's see how it goes. I don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, they're still working on it, which is great because it'll get done soon, but it sucks when it happens on the day that I'm supposed to record. So they've been working here for a month and a half. Yeah. Almost a month and a half, about 5 weeks. And they've never come here on a Saturday, except today, which is awesome.